Noah's Ark 2x2 formation. Road change now, we go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action is go.
This is very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in. This has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill, then head towards the Aqua Minerale. Imola, of course. There's another one off through the gravel. Are as wide as possible as they drop downhill, but if that's up the inside line. Yes,
Oh, he did.
Through he goes.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to another Apex Online Racing stream here for the season finale of Season XN. Yes, we are round 7 at Imola. Not quite Monza, as I rather mistakenly identified last week. Got confused between my Italian circuits, but we are in for a very, very exciting final round of this championship. This man on screen right now, Daniel Pashka in the number 77 Audi, hasn't won a single race all season, but as it currently stands, he is your championship leader on 336 points. But man that has been putting him under all sorts of pressure in recent times and ended up having a little bit of a coming together at Laguna Seca last time out is this man in the 69 Audi, the SpongeBob liveried car of Christos Yogurk-Podens. And he has been in fine form. He has 2 race wins so far this season, but in this latter portion of the season, it does look like he has been the stronger car. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do potentially to take that fight towards our current championship leader. And we've also got a couple of other drivers that technically are still within the championship hunt. I think we have actually technically got 6 drivers that could walk away with the title this evening, but the next man that might be able to challenge for it is Gasper Mrak, who is in the server in that 88 Honda. Honda, not sure how well that's going to do around here today. I don't think it's a car that agrees with Imola very well, but Gasper has been very, very fast. We believe that he was leading at one point at Laguna Seca, and it all went wrong some point during the race. He just got under pressure from Urashilenko and ended up making mistakes that saw him drop down towards P3 in the end. If he'd managed to come away with that race win, that he would almost have exactly the same amount of points as Jogurk. So there's a big difference maker in that. But also bearing in mind, Gasper hasn't been in attendance for 2 of the races on the calendar. He missed out in Barcelona and at Bathurst, and he still managed to get himself up into P3 in the standings. So very, very impressive effort from him in this championship. And even though he has an outsider's chance, he has still had probably one of the most consistent seasons so far out of any of our drivers. Next man that is in contention is the number 51 Ferrari of Alessio Mellis. He currently sits in P4 on 272 points, so a good 64 points away from the championship lead. But potentially changeable conditions here at Imola this evening. We saw Samir Fock in Tier 1 yesterday getting that pole position in that sort of surprise turn with the pace of the Ferrari. So could we see a repeat from that for the Italian manufacturer at their home circuit? We'll have to wait and see. Then P5 in the standings. He's lost a couple of spots since last round, but is Dominic Koroshavin. If I can find him in the server. There he is, in that 330 Timbas Ukraine car, and jumps himself up the order temporarily for a current provisional P7 in the practice order. But Koroshavin, he came away with a second place finish at Bathurst, but has had 2 DNFs. He's, generally speaking, had very good pace so far this season, but just hasn't always quite been able to string it together and has had various issues along the way. I think potentially last week at Laguna Seca, he may have even had some sort of hardware issue or game crash, if I'm not mistaken. So very unfortunate to retire in that way, but unfortunately that is the trials and tribulations that comes with sim racing. Sim racing world's equivalent to mechanical errors in, or mechanical failures, excuse me, in the real world. And then the last man on the list that can challenge for the title is Trafka, who got his best finish of the season last time out at Laguna Seca. Came with P3 in that race. And, excuse me, actually, Gasper Mrak finished P5 last time. I was looking at the wrong spots in the previous race results, but Trafka, good performance there from him, and that's from him jump up to P6 in the standings and put himself on equal points with Koroshavin at 245. So they are all of your potential Tier 2 championship winners, depending on how it all plays out in the next hour and 15 minutes, more or less. We've got 3 minutes left on the practice server. I imagine it will be swapping over to qualifying fairly shortly. And there we go. There we do. And it looks like it is dry for the time being. So we see a wonderful hybrid of a McLaren and a Honda. If you ever wonder what would happen if designers decided to come together on that type of car. But we shall make our way into qualifying now then. And yes, it does look like we are going to have a dry session for the entirety of qualifying. So these drivers then, they can commit into a one specific direction then for their setup in qualifying. But how open will they leave it for the race? There's, I think, a 65% chance of it being dry, 30% chance of changeable conditions, and 5% chance of it being wet. Now the Tier 2 guys, sadly for them, well, it made great action for us, but I imagine was rather stressful from their points of views, have generally got quite a large amount of rain and changeable conditions so far this season. Namely, we saw all of the amazing strategy that was going on at Misano, where Daniel Pashka almost performed the masterclass in strategy, but then got that unfortunate drive-through penalty for corner cutting in the tail end of that first series of stints. So will we see a repeat of the busyness and the action that we get in those changeable conditions tonight? Imola, even if it's not raining, provides a lot of fantastic action. It's a circuit that is so technical, so fast and high speed, and it has a good amount of overtaking opportunities as well, but it is very, very tricky sometimes to master. We saw yesterday's Tier 1 champion Luke Whitehead get a drive-through penalty in the race because track limits around here, they're so rewarding if you get them right, but if you get them wrong, they are very unforgiving and will cripple you with that drive-through penalty. Long pit lane around here as well. We're going to head on board with Alessio Mellis to take us for a lap around here at the Imola race circuit, then crossing the line now, and technically already having gone through turn 1. Turn 1, a little kink down the start finish straight as Thomas Jack gets out of the way, and then hard on the brakes, using that little bit of entry curve to swing his way into the apex of turn 2, through the apex of 3, and then carrying that momentum into 4 as well. And then letting that Ferrari power open up down the back straight before 5 and 6. Really tricky braking zone, especially in the wet, taking a decent amount of curb. We'll see a variety of cars taking different amounts of those curves. See those yellow sausage-style curbs on that very, very middle of the apex. Ferrari isn't a car that will be able to deal with those sorts of curves quite so well, and also will probably be one that struggles with a bit of consistency in that tricky chicane at the end, running out through into Piratella and then down through the apex of 10, and then we go into one of the trickiest couple of corners, Acqua Minerale through 11, then hard on the brakes again for 12, get it kicked around. I think it was there where Whitehead managed to get that drive-through penalty, running wide on the exit. You want to use up all the track, but it is very, very unforgiving. Then a little bit of entry curb before going into Variante Alta over those two curves of chicane. Very nicely dealt with there, actually, by Alessio. So it looked like a very neat and tidy lap so far to see what the Ferrari driver can do. Again, he is probably the last realistic contender for the championship, currently P4 in the standings, nicely through 17 then, and then into Ravazza onto the start-finish straight. Also one of those typical straights where it's regarded as a straight because it is a very long flat-out section, but a bit like Baku in Azerbaijan, has about 4 different apexes along this way. But Alessio will come across the line for 41.7. The other times are going to start rolling in, and who is going to be able to challenge him? Koroshavin goes into provisional P2. Yang climbs in the Porsche, a car that's likely to struggle around here, goes in P5. Loris Madiri in the BMW. We know how quick the BMWs are around here. Connor Wright taking that win yesterday in Tier 1 did brilliantly well, and it is Madiri that currently leads all of the other drivers away by just under a tenth of a second. Any other times that can challenge for that provisional pole position so far, it's not looking like it. It's been a pretty good effort there so far from Loris. Closely challenged by Remy Papin, the teammate of the man that is P2 in the championship, Christos Jogurk, but that's not the car that those two would really be rathering was up there. We haven't seen either of our main championship protagonists come through and do a lap yet. Whereabouts are they on the circuit? We've got... Jogurk was right behind Mellis, so he must have invalidated his first effort. And that's Watson. Where is Pashka? And Pashka is just coming through the exit of Acqua Minerale then. So we've still got a lot of quick guys to do their times yet. Gaspar Marak as well, yet to set a representative lap. Oh, we've got a current provisional pole man. Get a little bit held up by Thomas Jack, potentially on the exit then of the chicane. Yellow flag for the 402 car, who's just retired to the pits. We'll see what Loris Madiri can do. He is a couple of tenths up, though, on his previous lap, so I think it's going to be a fine effort. Oh, Podens goes up into pole position. I think it might be snatched away from, though, immediately by Loris as he heads towards the line. He's going to cross the line now, I think. Oh, it was an improvement, but no. So Christos Jogurk in the number 69 Audi, the man P2 in the standings, is on provisional pole. So that is very, very important potentially for the championship. Where is Pashka? Pashka has started another lap. So he did actually complete his last lap. You can see 1:47 there, so clearly not representative. Already 5 seconds up on his previous time, so we're still waiting for a representative lap from the man leading the standings. They've got Matthias Weber, race winner so far this season at Barcelona, snatched that victory away from Paschke after a mistake in the opening sector, and then didn't make a single error for the remainder of the stint and held on to that one, and he is another 10th or so of a second up on his current previous best, so maybe the first man to sneak into the 39s. But the Audi's looking remarkably strong, much stronger than we saw the likes of Bauer and some of the other drivers in Tier 1 yesterday managing to extract out of these cars, so really pushing the limits there on the exit of turn 10. So a 717 car retiring to the pits. That was Remy Rose, brought out the yellow flag. As Madiri is on a big improvement here. That's 0.4 of a second up. This might be good enough to take pole, and it might also be good enough to go into the 39s. He's going to get a nice little slipstream off Jan Climbs just up ahead. Man that finished second, I believe, at Laguna Seca. So Madiri gaining all the time down this back straight. It's worked out wonderfully for him, actually, and it will be good enough for provisional pole. 40.8. As if there was a horrible shotgun noise over the stream then, I am so sorry if that came through on stream. It's an audio bug in ACC. It's not the first time it's happened this season, and it absolutely just blew out my eardrum, so I do apologise if that came across on stream as well. As all interesting stuff, Daniel Paschke then goes up into the front row on a 41.0, so he did get a representative lap in there in the end. And he now sits ahead of his championship rival, so this is getting very, very interesting. We've got a bit of a large pentuple, well now quadruple stack BMW sandwich here, because we've got Matt York that's just gone up into P6, and then we have those 4 Audis of Paschke, Weber, Papin, and Jogurk taking up positions from 2nd to 5th. So interesting stuff so far. We've got just under 7 minutes left in the session. I do believe that there was a question in the chat, so it's been retracted now, but I think it was a valid question about who do I think might be on to win today. Well, that's very tricky to tell. I think in terms of this qualifying session, we have a dry qualifying. Loris Madiri is looking very, very quick, because that BMW is just mighty around here at Imola, so I think Madiri is in with a very good shout of getting pole, and depending on what the weather conditions are like and how well he can adapt to them, if there is variability, then Madiri might be very difficult to beat around here. But if we do have changeable conditions, up until that drive-through penalty error at Misano, Paschke was the absolute master of reading the weather. And currently sitting up now in the top 3 as Remy Papin displaces him from the front row. Paschke is a driver that we know can adapt to these conditions, to changeable conditions really, really well. So depending on what the weather is like in the race, it's difficult to place who might be quick. But Madiri so far looking very, very fast. The first or the second driver to get into the 40s is Remy Papin on that 40.955, still 700ths away from the BMW. As no one really improving for the time being. We've got Trafka a bit further down, struggling for pace at the moment. He's found a couple of tenths, but only good enough to see him go up to 25th position. Juris Yelenko, the driver that won last time out at Laguna Seca, with a bit of a comeback drive for him after what has been a tricky season. We've always seen that he's at good pace so far, but it never really came together until round 6, so might be a bit of a long day in the office for him, currently down in 30th position. I think he will jump up a couple of spots, and indeed it goes up to 26th to slot in just behind another Honda driver of Trafka, but the Hondas seemingly really struggling around here. I mean, Gaspar Marak, whereabouts is he? He's only in 24th position, so the man P3 in the standings really not able to extract much pace at the moment. Alessio Mellis, P4 in the championship, currently sits in P9. So it really does look like, in terms of raw qualifying pace at the moment, that Paschke and Jogurk, drivers 1 and 2 in the standings respectively, are continuing to be the likely candidates to go away from this evening, with one of them winning the championships. We'll have to see how it plays out in the final 4 minutes of this session. Comment there from Morpheus. I imagine referring to said shotgun noise. I do apologise. It doesn't happen all too often, but when it does, it really does go quite cataclysmically badly. And like I say, it really did feel like it was about to blow up my eardrums when it did that in my headset. So I can only imagine what they came across us on the stream. So I do apologise. It's a bug that's been around in Assetto Corsa Competizione for a while now, and hopefully will be cured at some point, but at least for the time being is something that we occasionally still have to deal with. But back at the action, we've got Matt York that has found a 10th on this lap so far. He's currently sitting down in P7, but he could put a cat amongst the pigeons if he is able to make his way up towards the top 5, and if that's a BMW between our two championship protagonists, then that could really start to make things messy, although I think he's lost a bit of time in the final part of the lap. And yeah, that is him opening up the line to start another one. So no improvement there this time round for Matt York. Got just Haverman in the 33 Audi. He's found 3/10 of a second. That should be good enough potentially to get himself into the top 10. So that'd be a good jump up the order for the man currently in P18 in the grid. And he heads towards the line. It's been... oh, it would have been good enough on pace, but he's invalidated the lap somewhere along the way, so it won't be an effective improvement for him in the end. Drivers up at the front. Weber's found a 10th. Matt York has found 3/10 in the opening part of the lap, so still definitely potential changes for position here that could be very influential on the outcome of the championship. Kurashavin, though, has found 3/10 of a second. That could be good enough to get himself up into the top 10 if he can carry that momentum towards the start-finish line. As he heads towards the line, it'll be good enough for P10, so he'll just scrape the boundary there. Matt York now going through Aqua Minerale. Good drive on the exit, and he has continued to find that 3/10 margin. How does he deal with the very tricky chicane? Nicely over that first apex and second. See just how much curb these drivers are taking. We've got a very interesting bit of insight yesterday, actually, from Luke Whitehead in the post-race interviews about how you take that chicane to not get warnings, but to maximise the time that you can get. And depending on where the cut happens, if you cut across the inside early portion of the curve, then you'll get a warning. But if you cut across it just after that initial sausage curve has started, so the first time you cross it is kind of midway through the apex and on the outer portion of the curve, then you can actually get away with it and almost get a more ideal cut for your racing line into the next apex. So you can see just the fine margins that all of these drivers are working with. Matt York on that last lap backed off in the end. In the meantime, though, we've got Pashka that has found a 10th of a second. He was 2/10, so I'm not sure if he lost any time behind Robin Moe in the final sector, which might be good enough to get him back onto the front row. I don't think it's going to be good enough for pole. As he sees that one to the line, I think it will be an improvement. Oh, and he did find enough for pole in the end. The power in the Audi managed to just have enough grunt in the very final part of the lap to get our championship leader into pole position. So a very, very good effort there from the 77 car. Is there any response from this man, Christos Yoga? There very well might be. He's found 2/10. Yeah, a little bit of a squirrely exit on the exit of the chicane, and it has cost him momentum down that back stretch. I don't think, unless he has an absolutely wondrous 17 and 18. Oh, that's a big slide. I think he's around. And he is. So that will be it. So no improvement then for Yogurt. So he won't start any higher than P5. And with the likes of McCluskey, who has found 10th of a second. Good effort there from him to get the Bentley up into provisional P6. And then we've got Matt York that's found 3/10 of a second once more. See if he can see this one to the line. But that is disaster for Christos Yogurt, potentially for his championship hopes, because right now Pashka is sitting on the very front spot of the grid. He's still on his lap and improving, but Matt York has found a huge amount of time on this lap. This could be challenging for the front row potentially. As he sees it to a line, it's only good enough for P4, not enough grunt in the BMW, but a strong effort there, and I think by far Matt York's best qualifying of the season so far. Matthias Weber has found 10th of a second as well, maybe at a break just about into the 40s, but maybe only good enough for top 4, and it is P4 then for the previous race winner. Who else have we got improving? Remy Rose has got a good improvement going at the moment. Has found 0.3 of a second, so that could see him jump up into P6 potentially. If they see that 717 car all the way to the end of the lap. I think they've lost a little bit of time in the final portion there. Oh, just seem to regain it though, so I think the exit actually might have been fairly decent in the end, and it is good enough for P6, but I don't think then anyone else is going to be able to challenge for pole position. Neuwirth goes up to P17. Gasper Rack has found 0.6 of a second on this lap. I think it might be a valid one, so this could be a huge improvement for him to get up into the top 10. Oh, and it's only good enough for P13 in the end, but that is our last qualifying session of the season then, and it is this man, Daniel Pashka, the championship leader, starting exactly where he needs to be on on pole for the final round then, to try to convert that margin that he has in the standings over Yogok, who dropped down to P7 in the end. So not only was that mistake, that oversteer moment on the exit of turn 17, not only was that costly on that lap alone, but it also meant he couldn't set up another one. So that really damaged that qualifying session for Yogok, so not what he would have wanted at all. You see, definitely starting in very dark conditions. That'll make life a bit tricky for these guys. Let's have a look at the weather. And it is looking dry for the meantime, so doesn't look like, at least for the time being, in this first half of the race, that anyone will be worrying about rain. Fairly reasonable winds though. So it's not out of the question that we could see some variability in the weather in the latter portions of the race. And that brings in a very big question about how do they approach the setup? Do they just hope it's going to be dry all the way to the end? Do they gamble that there's going to be wet weather later on and just have a car that's sitting there waiting, ready for the conditions to switch around? Now, we saw in the qualifying session at Silverstone recently in Formula 1 that when the weather was changing and making its way through kind of different phases of levels of rain, just how much time changed and how much grip there was on the circuit. So changeable conditions, that can be a really big dynamic in how the cars behave, who's able to extract performance out of the car, who's more comfortable in those changeable conditions, and it really does test your concentration, how comfortable you are in your car when those sorts of things arise. But at least for the next 30 minutes, it looks like we'll have a dry racetrack. But it will be this man, Daniel Pashka, currently leading the championship, and he will lead them away at the start of this race to put the number 77 Audi onto pole position, knocking off Loris Madiri, who looks in such fine form for that qualifying session. May have enough race pace to maybe overturn that race victory conversion for Pashka, but only good enough for the front row in the end for Madiri. But a strong session there from him. Yogurk's teammate Remy Papin in the Patrick liveried car. I'm not sure if we can get a better angle. No, it's just as bad. We've got the number 6 then starting in 3rd place. Matthias Weber starting in P4. And then the next of our BMWs, Matt York. Good qualifying session there from him, start P5. That might be a personal best of the season for him. Remy Rose starting in P6. Then our other championship protagonist starting down in P7, the SpongeBob liveried Audi. A little bit more distance though between himself and Pashka. They came together at the very start of the race at Laguna Seca last week, and it was Yogurk that came off much worse, ended up retiring from that race, and Pashka really had a huge opportunity to come away with a big haul of points to cement that championship lead, but then ended up making a huge error of a stop-and-go 30-second penalty in the pits. Very tricky pit lane entry at Laguna Seca, but that did certainly bring it down to the wire, which is exciting for us because it means that we still have a championship to be entertained by. Mr. Jones up into P8 in the Aston Martin. Brilliant effort there from him. I think that is by far his best qualifying position in the Aston, so good stuff there from the number 9. Benji McCluskey, the first of our Bentleys, has really improved as the season has gone on. Benji didn't have the strongest of starts. How did he get on earlier on? So we had, first race at Massano, so somewhere where the Bentley is very, very strong. He finished in 22nd place, but then he had an 11th, a 13th, a 16th, a 14th, and an 11th. So he's been teetering around the top 10 positions over these last few races, and perhaps Imola is going to be the place where he finally manages to break into it. He's certainly done it in qualifying. Let's see if he can convert it in the race. Alex Rosetta starting in P10. Then we've got Ola Pitchik in the 141 Audi starting in P11 as all the drivers start to put their lights on. Very much needed in these very dark early morning conditions. Thomas Jack, the first of our McLarens. Good effort there from Thomas. Not an easy car to get around here at Imola. Struggles with the curbs quite a lot. Jasper Marak down in P13. Currently third place in the championship standings, but not where he needed to start if he was going to have a chance of snatching away the championship from either of the Audi drivers. James Cowley just behind him in P14. Alessio Mellis did not have a particularly strong qualifying session in the end, so he'll be hoping for some potentially changeable conditions, see if he can capitalise on that and work his way up the order. But down in P15, really not where he would have wanted to have been starting. Same for Dominic Koroshavin in P16. Yuko Terminen in the Lexus, just behind him in P17. The number 63 car of the Aston Martin of Wojtek Neuwirth starting in P18. Benjamin King in P19. And then David Gavon, the next of our Bentleys, rounding out the top 20. We've got Robin Moe in the Vodafone McLaren. Get a nice view of that livery there. Very nicely done. Jordan Watson, who has had a very up and down season, has had strong pace at times, but it hasn't always come together. But the 147 car starting down in 22nd place. Race winner from last time out, Yuris Yelenko, down in 23rd, so it could be a difficult day for him. Just Haverman drops down to P24 in the end, and then Trafka down in 25th with Jay Fang in 26th behind him. Jay Fang will obviously slot into his position later on in the formation lap. Then we've got Andre Verona in the 402 Lamborghini. Jan Climbs all the way down in 28th position, so really, really difficult for the Porsche driver, who I think is actually the only Porsche on the grid today. Such a popular car in other tiers, but very few driving it here today. They've got Jean-Michel Brin in the other Lamborghini down 29th. Arnaud Rodri in the 200 McLaren in 30th. And then Patrick Adamczyk rounding out the grid in 31st position. And also, I really must say, a huge thank you and congratulations to all of the drivers, because we still have over 30 cars at the end of the season going into the finale. And well, anyone that's been watching the streams on a regular basis from season to season, you'll know that sometimes the attendance can drop off somewhat later on in the season, but it's been absolutely fantastic here in Tier 2 to have so many drivers committed to the championship all the way through. It's really made for such an exciting championship and has given us so much action. It gives the drivers themselves so much of a great opportunity to race one another and always be in a battle in this league. But now, as the drivers start to round their way around the final corner, or technically penultimate corner, the little kink just up ahead of 19 will be the final, but it will be Daniel Pashka to lead the way. The championship leaders starting on pole position then, ahead of Loris Madiri. Can he finally convert that strong qualifying into the win that he needs to see this title home? Waiting now for the green lights, just crawling their way. Yogurt then on the fourth row, the other championship contender. When are the lights going to go? Bound to go soon. Maybe not quite. It's suspense has been building up for quite a long time now, but there's the green flag and they're eventually away, and it will be Pashka with a brilliant start. Remy Papin immediately trying to go up the inside of Loris Madiri to head down towards turn one. Who is going to get the biggest advantage as they go through? And Remy Papin does slot into P2. I think that's Remy Rose that's been hung out to dry on the outside. Matt York making contact with Weber. Weber's off on the outside. York getting a little bit squirrely, but Daniel Pashka's been able to roar away out the very front. York now coming under pressure from a recovering Remy Rose, but I don't think York will lose a position as they're side by side going through that next series of corners. The timing board trying to sort itself out. Mr. Jones going to the inside of Weber. That's a very, very late dive. I think he might just about make it work, but the underdrive's going to have good drive. Benji McCluskey off in the background, losing positions hand over fist. That's Koroshavin, Neuwirth, all going past him. So difficult start there for the Bentley driver. Matt York has been able to maintain that position, as has Weber over Mr. Jones. But Daniel Pashka doing exactly what he needed to do at the start of this race and has already opened up a gap for several car lengths. So really, really good start there from him. But Yogurt crucially making up a couple of positions. We saw at Suzuka, the Yogurt, even though he started a bit further down the order, I thought he was going to go straight into the back of Matt York. Then it was close, but thankfully he pulled it up just in time. But Yogurt's race pace was absolutely phenomenal, so do not count this man out just yet. But Pashka getting the dream start that he wanted from this. Cars still very, very close together further down. Benji McCluskey all the way down to P16, so the hopes of that top 10 finish, first top 10 finish. Oh, we've got side-by-side action there going on between, that's Haverman and another one of the Audis, that's Benjamin King, who's trying to go around the outside. Can't make that one work just yet. But in the meantime, Yogurt already trying to put pressure onto Matt York, and you see the straight line speed. Also a bit of rubber banding. Getting very, very close between those two guys. They head down towards turn 2. Yogurt has a championship to think about. Matt York has nothing to lose. And Matt York will defend the inside line and hold the position for the time being. But that's brilliant drive there from the Audi. And he knows that he has to push on. But I don't think he'll be able to make any moves up through the order just yet. And Matt York will hold on position for now. Took a chunk of curb, though, through turn 6. And Yogurt really looking very, very racy. And you can see visibly the gap opening up between Matt York and Loris Madiri in the BMW up ahead. And Yogurt will be screaming inside the cockpit of that Audi to try to get past and charge after the man who is currently leading this race. But all in all, a fairly clean first lap. Trafka has retired to the pits, I think, potentially. So I didn't see what happened there. Is Trafka... Oh, Trafka is going to leave. So Trafka then repairing damage by the looks of it then. But is still in the race, which is the main thing. As Madiri also putting some heavy pressure onto Papin, who's very, very wide on the exit curb of Variante Alta. Very difficult sequence of corners there as well, but the BMW doesn't have the straight line speed advantage that the Audi does. Yogurt, though, in the meantime, has been able to hold onto the back of number 65 car just up ahead. Will hop on board with the Audi. It was good drive there from 65 just up ahead. Slipstream will start to come into effect roughly about now. You can see already starting to gain, and there is a good chunk of this straight yet to go. Loris Madiri sits fastest lap of the race. Very close at the front on pace. Getting very, very close between these two as well, as Yogurt couldn't quite work out which direction to go in. Oh, it's a side-by-side action there between Remy Rose and Mateus Weber through that first series of corners on the exit of turn 4. Weber trying to sweep around the outside. It's contact, but they're both off. And I think that was Mr. Jones that capitalised on that, but Weber, the winner from round 4, is also further bunching up the likes of Thomas Jack and Rosetta all going on. We've got Koroshavin trying to stick his nose up the inside of Cowley. It's absolute carnage here in the tail end of the top 10. But Weber, as David Gavon goes wide, as there's about 5 wide battle going on at various points of the circuit. All of these small groups, I think that's with Mellis potentially, who has dropped down the order. Who's that that's gone off on the exit of turn 10? I didn't see who that was. That was, I think, the 717 car, potentially, who seems to retire to the pits. And that's Remy Rose. So Remy Rose, amongst all of that, we'll try to see what happened there, because it was all kicking off in the top and tail end of the top 10. So I think that is Rosetta that he's battling with. Oh, and there's a tap on the exit and a huge amount of contact there, and Remy Rose just decides to call it a day there and then. Koroshavin looked like he managed to capitalise on getting past James Cowley in the end, and Thomas Jack had to sit back and watch, but it was all kicking off behind as well, with the likes of McCluskey, Gavon, Mellis and Trafka all, Marak, all getting very, very busy. We'll check in at the front though once again, because championship battle is very, very important, of course. Clearly, look at Loris Madiri, though, really has driven away with the top 3. Pashka fastest lap of the race last time around. And Yogurt once again trying to go. Oh, he sells the dummy around the outside, but can't quite make it stick down the inside there. Matt York did not react to that manoeuvre. And Yogurt will have to wait one more time at least then. The BMW driver showing no signs yet of giving up that position, as it seems to settle down just marginally amongst the tail end of the top 10. We've got some close battles over between the Bentley. McCluskey has managed to recover a few positions in the last couple of laps, maybe going for a dive potentially on Neuwirth, going to go around the outside. It's a tricky one to make stick, but he's really giving it a very, very good go, but he can't quite get the traction that he needs on the exit and everything. He's actually now under pressure from David Gavon, who senses an opportunity as they head up towards Piratella. Is he able to do anything through there? No. Gavon will have to wait for now. Oh, there's a tank slapper there for the number 28 car on the exit. So McCluskey really pushing on in the Bentley. In the meantime, though, looking at the battle for P4, Jorge once again showing his nose up the inside of the chicane, but Matt York having absolutely none of it and holds on to the position. Top 3 still roughly where they were before, so very, very even on pace. And I think Madiri has potentially got the pace advantage over Papin, but the straight line speed of that Audi just constantly able to keep himself in front. As we'll have a look at the rear wing now of Matt York. York has had a good few attempts so far down in towards turn 2. But the BMW driver has kept his head so far in this race to hold on to position. You can see the Audi really starts to reel him in down the tail end of the back straight, and he has got nose up the inside, and he sends it down towards the inside. Can he get it stopped? And the answer is no. Completely cuts across the chicane of turn 3 and has to let the BMW back through, and that is losing him more and more time. And you can see his championship hopes going down the pan at the moment. He will be desperate for potentially a weather change to upset this, because right now Jogurk is unable to make any progress through the field. Getting very, very busy. We've got back marker there of Weber that is just in front of Remy Papin and Loris Madiri. Pashka has already made his way through, so he'll be very glad to see clear track ahead of him. We'll have a look further down as the battle between McCluskey and Gavon still raging on. We've also got quite a bit of close action further down the order between Yurish Yelenko and Andrew Verona. Verona's had a very good start, actually. I think Verona has gained about 7 positions from his qualifying spot. That's very, very wide from the race winner last time out. Can't afford to do that too many times. So you do risk getting a corner cutting penalty. Looks like a Lamborghini, a bit more composed. A bit more composed on the entry, but just does not get the drive on the exit. Lamborghini does tend to be at a bit of a power disadvantage. We've also got Terminant and Rodri having their battle in the background. The Lexus really absorbing the curve. You can see visibly how much the McLaren gets chucked around by the apexes there, but the Lexus holds on strong. In the meantime, Mr. Jones is really charging on, looking to try to put some pressure onto the Audi driver. The Aston Martin used to be absolutely rapid. Oh, that was Jan Clubs coming out of the pits there. Very, very close on the pit exit. Thankfully, no contact with our front group of 5. Faith in the closest battle we've got on track at the moment is Madiri desperately trying to find a way past Remy Papin. And Remy Papin, although he would love it if he was ahead of Pashka, obviously the teammate to Chris's Jorgo, because we already mentioned he's gone very, very deep through turn 7 though. Does that give any sort of potential advantage to Madiri? Madiri would have got so much better driving. You can see just up the hill, even in the slipstream, just doesn't have the grunt in the BMW or to be able to capitalise on that increased acceleration. So the advantage will still be with the number 6 Audi. As they head through Aqua Minerale then, they fare on the exit. Does look like Madiri much more composed. Coming up on some more traffic just up ahead for Daniel Pashka, so we'll be looking to try to deal with that fairly swiftly. Papin once again going very wide on the exit of turn 15. Can't afford to be doing that too often. Matt York, in the meantime, has been reeled in once again by Jogurk, and Mr. Jones has dropped back considerably. Let's have a bit of a look further down the order. Cowley holding on to P10 from Thomas Jack. We've got Neuwirth under a bit of pressure from McCluskey, who's been able to drop Gavon on the last couple of laps, and maybe still not over just yet. We've got Mellis and just Haverman going side by side into turn 17. Mellis trying to get the cut back now towards 18. We saw it all go wrong with, I think it was Black Goldsaw yesterday, and Bauer through that series of corners, but no such issues there. Gasper Mrak in the background going slightly wide on the exit. Might have a potential change of position though for P14, excuse me. Actually, no, sorry, it is P15. They swapped around earlier on in the lap. Ferrari not a slouch in a straight line, trying to go around the outside in towards turn 2. It'd be a brilliant move. He can make it stick, and they're just about giving each other enough room. But he does give Melis a bit of a squeeze on the exit. Watson's now trying to have a go at this and is carrying that momentum through the opening series of corners, and a late move towards the inside from Melis will block Watson from being able to make any progress there, as I think that was Termanen trying to go around the inside of Yelenko, who went wide on the exit of turn 4 there. So chopping and changing all the time. We'll check back up the front as well. Pashka continuing to extend his lead. Fastest lap of the race by far on that last lap, 41.6. Half a second faster than anybody else in, or excuse me, anyone else in the top 3. It was good times from some of our other drivers outside of those positions. Jogurk and Matt York, they were battling a bit earlier, but the pace is definitely strong. So in actual fact, if Papin and Madiri begin to battle, then it might be possible for some of those other drivers on the tail end of those podium positions to try to close in a bit. But for the time being, these cars are spread out. A lot more traffic earlier on in this race to deal with than these guys are perhaps used to. Not usually the case for so many people pitting early, but I think amongst all of that chaos that we've had so far, drivers deciding to sacrifice track position for some repaired damage and hopefully better long run pace. 2 Ferraris still battling then. Melis hasn't been able to close back up to just Haverman. He's got Jordan Watson right in the slipstream. 2 like-for-like cars, so as Yelenko comes into the pits now. Watson shows us nose up the inside, but can't do anything just yet. Maybe a little bit deep though on the brakes from Melis, and that's going to compromise his exit through 3 and 4. We saw these guys get very, very close together through this sequence of corners last time out, but not this time around. Watson unable to carry the same sort of momentum difference to the Ferrari ahead. Watson taking a lot more curb there as he went through turn 6. Didn't look like it entirely paid off though for the 147 Ferrari. As we check up back ahead again on that last lap, Pashka a couple of tenths of a second up, but the fastest lap of the race goes to this man, Matt York, 41.5 on the last lap, 2 tenths of a second faster than anybody else. Always that's Weber and Benjamin King, although they're back markers, that is for position. So these two, you'd have to imagine that Weber would have the pace advantage. Race winner so far this season, Benjamin King hasn't been the strongest. Does he think about a move down in towards 17? He shows the nose, but he backs out of it for the time being. Will be like-for-like cars going down the back stretch, of course, but in the slipstream, even though Benjamin King will be getting a little bit of a tow from the BMW up ahead, it won't be helping him too much, but Weber did not get a good exit there out of the final corner, but Papin has got Madiri really starting to close in now. It's the closest it's been for a while. He's dive towards the inside. It looks like he's going to. They're going to be side by side towards turn 2. Madiri, can he finally make the move stick? And he does. Brilliantly executed there from the number 24 car to see himself recover that P2 position, as that's Trafka and Yelenko battling up ahead. Flashing of the lights there from Loris Madiri. Understandably does not want to lose any time to Daniel Pashka or have pressure from behind once more. A bit of a look further down, we've got a 4-way tussle for the final spot in the top 10. We've got Cowley, Jack, Neuwirth and McCluskey all scrapping for the final honours there. But brilliant stuff there from Loris Madiri, really executed that one perfectly. And now it is crucial for him to open up the gap as quickly as possible. As Yelenko goes a bit wide, will get out of the way, and I don't think that would have cost Madiri. Maybe a little bit compromising for Papin, actually, if anything, because he was a bit awkwardly on the exit of, on the apex, excuse me, going into Aqua Minerale. Getting very busy once more, as that's Weber and Benjamin King continuing their scrap. So even down all the way in 28th position, these guys are scrapping very intensely. But that was a fantastic move there from Madiri. Have to see, can he hold on to it? Oh, he's got the Honda up ahead. It would have compromised him a bit, but he will get a bit of a slipstream, and Papin digs a wheel into the gravel. That's going to compromise his exit quite heavily there. And Madiri now, I imagine, a bit more flashing of the lights, but will be staying firmly in the wheel tracks of that Honda as long as he can to really get the advantage. See, the indicator light coming on from Trafka, as that's Yelenko, who's in a three-way tussle behind. We'll have to see if we can catch that one, because these guys going side by side towards turn 2. Yelenko defending the inside line from Benjamin King, goes very, very deep all over the sausage curbs. King going to go around the outside. Can Weber go through as well? And he will. And Yelenko dropping positions, and then Matt York flashing the lights as well. Yelenko will relinquish that one very, very quickly. But mistakes there made from the race winner last time out. We've got Pitchik under pressure now from the number 8 car of Rosetta, so a teammate to Loris Mediri. Mediri does seem to have been able to open up a little bit of an advantage already, so let's see what can the BMW driver do now that he's in clear air. We saw the pace that was in these BMWs yesterday in Tier 1 with Connor Wright putting an absolutely mega race together. But what would it be for the drivers this evening? Just under 3/4 of this race to go. Still, this quite close fight between these two. Cowley's been able to stretch out a couple of car lengths from Thomas Jack, but he's under all sorts of pressure from Neuwirth and the Bentley of McCluskey. And crucially, those cars very, very fast down the backstretch in comparison to McLaren. But oh, it's a big moment on the exit there for the Aston Martin. That's going to allow the Bentley to try and go around the outside in towards the chicane. Surely he can't pull that one off, and Neuwirth will cover it off in the braking zone. But that has compromised his position. Won't be able to get so much of a tow going down that back stretch. What can McCluskey do in the number 28 Bentley? We saw Valentine Barry have some really good pace in this car yesterday in Tier 1. McCluskey trying to recover his way towards the top 10 as Papin comes into the pits. So that's the first of our lead drivers. See what McCluskey can do in the Bentley. You can see just starting to gain on the Aston Martin ahead. Which way does Neuwirth go? Surely he goes towards the inside. The Bentley going to be sent towards the outside, then going to try to go around the outside of turn 2. The latest of late break has been brilliant if he can make it stick. We've seen this happen before. And McCluskey is sent towards the middle of the corner. Gavon now trying to get involved in this. And a huge overspeed from the 108 car. Now we've got a three-way fight for P11. And Gavon trying to see if he can sneak his way through. But not quite happening just yet. And McCluskey barely holds on to P12. But getting very, very busy. You can see just the sequence of corners that we have here at Imola. It's so easy for the positions to start bouncing around when as soon as there's a mistake made by one driver or you compromise the line of one another, because the corners come so thick and fast, you lose time so quickly, and then you end up with these amazing tussles, almost reminiscent actually of Hamilton, Perez and Leclerc having that three-way fight for the podium spots at Silverstone last weekend. Matt York is currently not under pressure from the driver behind, so that is Weber just behind, and then Jogurk now up into P4. Remy Papin obviously having pitted. They've got Mr. Jones, who's getting a little bit held up from Yelenko at the moment, so we'll be hoping that Honda moves out of the way fairly swiftly. In the meantime though, this three-way tussle for P11 continuing. May see another potential move down towards turn 2. I'll tell you what though, David Gavon is looking very, very racy actually behind the pair of these two. So we'll go on board with the 108 car and see what can he do going down towards turn 2. Will we see the Bentley up ahead pull to one side to go for a move? Thinking about the inside, we might have to come out of the onboard camera there because McCluskey, he was thinking about trying to get the overlap on the inside there, but just could not quite do it. The Aston Martin holding on strong for the time being. Mr. Jones currently sandwiched between a couple of back markers, has dealt with Yelenko, who is battling for position with the Audi just in front of Mr. Jones. That is Benjamin King, who has lost a lot of time from Matthias Weber, who was battling with earlier. And Mr. Jones getting a little bit frustrated at this point because it's got a blue flagged back marker car behind him. Blue flag is clearly waving furiously to Benjamin King. And then Benjamin King makes a mistake there, and surely he's going to have to relinquish that one, but that maybe allows Yelenko to try to go around the outside. Oh, we've got Weber and Trafka going side by side up ahead as well. Weber did manage to make that one work. That was absolutely remarkable. And then the side by side on the exit between Yelenko and Benjamin King will be a drag race down towards turn 17. Mr. Jones just up ahead. And that mistake from Benjamin King has allowed Yelenko try to capitalise on it. Does he fancy a move on the inside? No, is the answer. And then it will be as they were before, down on the run towards turn 2. As in the meantime, Neuwirth under very, very intense pressure from McCluskey. Gavon has dropped back just a little bit. Neuwirth, though, really strong in those last couple of corners. And McCluskey dived into the pits, so he wants to try going for the undercut. He feels that he's faster. It looks like he is the faster car, but just hasn't been able to make up any positions for the time being. So I have to keep an eye out on how that battle continues when these drivers emerge from the pits. And for the time being, for about the first time this race, we haven't actually got any major fights going on. But what we do have is some very, very interesting lap times to look at, because this man, Loris Mediri, was the fastest man on the track last time round, a 41.6, and he was 0.2 of a second faster than Daniel Pashka, your championship leader, the man that started from pole. He's led every single lap so far in these opening 22 minutes. And the number 77 car right now doing everything that he needs to do. But if Mediri continues to close, then we could see a fight for the race win. And Pashka, he's got to keep a cool head here today. He's let mistakes that led to drive-through, stop and go 30-second penalties, contacts with other cars get the better of him before, and it's made winning this championship that much more difficult. Today, he cannot afford to do that once again. In the meantime, I think Jogurk has pitted. So Jogurk now, yep, Jogurk has come out of the pits. We've got McCluskey that's just coming out of the pits as well. So who was McCluskey battling with earlier? So that was Neuwirth and Gavon, wasn't it? So they haven't pitted just yet. That's the margin between Remy Papin and Chris's Jogurk. Then we'll see his teammate appearing. Bright yellow speck, there he is in the distance. So Remy Papin unusually, seemingly has the better of his teammate today. In the meantime, though, fastest car on the circuit now is this man, Mercedes Weber, who's right behind Matt York on circuit. So the Audi driver still putting in good lap times. Still has lost out a lot so far this race with that opening series of laps and how that all played out. Pitchik and Fang now coming into the pits as well, so more of our sort of top 20 drivers starting to come into the pits. But for the time being, nothing closing up too much. See though, what sort of pace have we got from the likes of Jogurk? So Jogurk now, I think, I'm not sure if this will be his first representative lap. His delta showing an improvement on this lap around, so that'll be relative, I believe, to his in-lap, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what the Audi driver does as he comes towards the line. So last time around, a 42.2, so I think that is quite a representative pace there from the number 69 car, and in terms of what he needs to be doing, that is not fast enough. That's 0.3 of a second away from what Pashka is doing on old tyres. So the man P2 in the standings, currently not doing enough to overthrow the championship lead that Pashka has at the moment. Not a single race win so far this season, but generally speaking, has been very consistent. Had a torrid time at Bathurst, which Jogurk was able to capitalise on immensely in the championship. But Pashka got caught up in a huge pile-up, along with Steinhauser, driving we haven't seen in a while, and ends up finishing in 27th place there. And then other than that, Laguna Seca, that stop-and-go 30-second penalty, so him dropped down to 20th. But other than that, Pashka, with all of the up and downs that he's had this season, he's had 2 podium finishes, both of which were second places, and 2 P4 finishes. So generally speaking, he has had a very consistent season overall, and that is what has allowed him to get into the position that he currently has. As we'll just check in, Matt York being put under pressure from the lapped car of Weber. Matt York goes very, very wide there. Can't afford to be doing that too often. The BMW driver does not want to risk getting a drive-through penalty. He does have he has an outside shot of a podium here today. Remy Papin has pitted, so that P3 position is actually P4. And Weber actually might be looking, trying to unlap himself fairly soon, or maybe we'll just be hoping that York will come into the pit sooner rather than later. Papin 42.0 on the last lap. Similar lap time for his teammate. down in P18 for the time being. These are our front two drivers that have pitted. Jordan Watson has come into the pits as well. So we'll see whereabouts he emerges. We've got pitching, so some of these drivers have already gone through. So I think, so yeah, pitching then has come in about 5 seconds or so behind Jogurk, and then has a big gap then to Thomas Jack, who is further down. Benjamin McCluskey not too far away, the Bentley driver, from the McLaren that he was in that battle, amongst that battle earlier. Also got some nice support there for this man, Daniel Pashka, currently leading this race. And if I'm not mistaken, potentially from yesterday's winner. I could be wrong. It's a Connor in the chat, and I could be wrong about that. But yeah, fantastic to see people supporting. And in the meantime, the first driver to suffer at the hands of track limits around here is this man, Remy Papin. That is going to promote Jogurk up a position. It's not the way he would have liked it. Probably wouldn't have been exactly wanting his teammate to be the first driver to get that, but Remy Papin then a drive-through penalty for the number 6 car. So what was looking like a good P3 position then all of a sudden has gone out of the window entirely. So that is a very costly error from him, and will we see any more drive-through penalties coming through in the latter half of this race? And as you, Connor, yeah, it was a fantastic drive from you yesterday. Huge congratulations on that. It was a brilliant Tier 1 victory, as Pashka now coming into the pits. Now what he really needs to do, he needs a cautious pit entry, but I have to say he can't be too cautious, because look at the gap. Loris Madiri, who has been putting in consistent laps, has just been chipping away little bit by little bit, not even a tenth on certain laps, sometimes just a fraction of a tenth, but Madiri has slowly but surely been chipping away at that lead, and now the two drivers at the very front of the pack separated by almost nothing in the pit lane. It'd be Madiri's teammate Rosetta that now takes over the race lead. We've also got the likes of Neuwirth that have come into the pits. We haven't got too many more drivers left to pit. Be interesting to see where Remy Papin emerges amongst all of this. So he is coming into Variante Alta at the moment. Of course, Papin actually, Jogurk, I think, was that a moment there for Jogurk? Did he skip the chicane? Because also Matt York seems very, very close behind him, so Jogurk now actually may not be gaining too much. Oh, that was a big error on the entry to the chicane. May well have got a warning for that one as well, but Matt York now senses very much an opportunity for what I think may be a podium position, because Papin is going to have to serve this drive-through penalty, which I believe... will that promote? I think it will. I think that will promote as... oh, in the meantime, we've had a change of lead. So we've missed that at some point. Pashka and Madiri have swapped around. We'll skip back. So it happened in the pits. So Pashka, did he miss his pit box? Because you can see the change of position has already happened. Pashka definitely has no... unless he's picked up damage from overtaking a back marker. I'm not aware that the 77 car has any damage, so I would have to presume that that has come about from nothing but overstepping the entry. And you can see Remy Papin on that undercut. If it wasn't for that drive-through penalty, he would actually be battling for the lead of the race right now. It's a disaster for the number 6 car. He'll be looking to try to slow these guys down as much as he possibly can for his teammate Jogurk, but I think Jogurk has got enough to worry about with Matt York really not that far behind. But big news at the front then. Oh, Papin is very, very feisty. Loris Madiri will be deeply concerned about the Audi really hustling his gearbox at the moment. Much better line though through the chicane for the BMW. Seems a lot more settled on through there. But Papin will have to serve that drive-through very imminently. And now we'll see Pashka recover up to second place, which he'll be slightly relieved about, because, you know, as it stands, if it wasn't for that, that's with the way that these points work in this championship, at those front points-paying positions, there are bigger gaps than there are further down the standings. So whilst Pashka and Yogurt are only one position apart still, with Papin pitting, the points margin actually goes a bit more in favour of Pashka, the lead car, rewards those that really do finish further on up. So that'll be helping him out, making him feel a bit more comfortable, but seemingly some sort of mistake there in that series of pit stops. And speaking of mistakes, that's a wide moment there for Madiri, and Pashka now really starting to close up onto the back of the BMW. Can he do anything going up the hill? We know that the Audi has good torque and will be able to out-drag this BMW if he just manages to get into the slipstream. We know how difficult it was for Madiri to try to get past Papin earlier on in this race, because that straight line speed of the Audi is just so phenomenally strong. Can the 77 car, the championship leader, started on pole? He'd led every single lap of this race up until the pit stop phase. Looked fairly neat and tidy through there. He'll need a neat sector as well. This is where the BMW is particularly strong. Yeah, you can see that the Audi really not settled on the second apex and then drops almost 2 car lengths further back behind the BMW, so I don't think Pashka will be able to do anything in the meantime. We've also got Alex Rosetta under pressure from Pitchick, and Pitchick, driver in the Audi. Mr. Jones just up ahead of him as well, so this could be a 3-way fight for P6 not too far away. Our last driver to pit then, Jean-Michel Bryn, comes into the pits now in the 21 car, and that will sort out the order. Oh, who was that yellow flag for? Oh, is there something going on? What is going on at the chicane? I think there's... is that 67 car? Who is that? Is that Neuwirth? It is Neuwirth. So that's 63 car of the Aston Martin. So what on earth has happened up at the chicane? So you've got McCluskey and Thomas Jack up ahead. Neuwirth on his own. Does he make a mistake on the entry or on the exit? Or is he going to get caught out by the cars? Oh, it's a huge jump for the Aston Martin. Does he get collected by anybody? Thankfully not. Everyone else brilliantly managed to take evasive action there. Oh, that was why it went on for a while. Poor Neuwirth not quite able to spin it around first time and dropping several positions. So very, very costly error. And now losing more positions as we go on board with him again, as that is the Lamborghini of Verona trying to slot down the inside in towards turn 2. Neuwirth going to make him work for it though, and may even hold on to it around the outside. He's brilliant if he can, just about leaving enough space. Oh, contact! It's turn 4 and Neuwirth is off again. Verona just about sort of pushes him back round, but Neuwirth's day goes from bad to worse, as Jean-Michel Bryn, Weber, Benjamin King trying to capitalise on this as well. And the Aston Martin that was on the tail end of the top 10 now ends up finding himself outside of the top 25. It's a disaster there for the 63 car. As Verona now and Trafka going side by side up the hill. Weber and Jean-Michel Bryn having a battle of their own as well. Trafka can't do anything up towards Piratella, as Jean-Michel Bryn trying to hold on to the inside. Weber sweeping around the outside. We know that he's the fastest car. Still has the fastest lap of this race. And interact with Minerali gets very, very close there. Neuwirth trying to see if he can get a position back amongst all of this as well. Jean-Michel Bryn going wide on the exit of Minerali. I don't know if that would have been a warning or not, but we've got a very, very busy battle going on. Benjamin King has to take evasive action. Might lose each of those positions there. You have the McLaren of Adamsick that was just behind, but Benjamin King holding on to that one for the time being, and that battle spreads out once more as McCluskey going down towards the inside of Thomas Jack, getting very, very close, and the Bentley driver forcing his way through, really muscling the McLaren out of the way, taking all of that curb and a bit more. Thomas Jack though really fighting this one back, seeing if he can do anything down towards turn 5, and I think the McLaren will have to relinquish that one. We'll see if we can catch what happened there. So we'll go on board with the rear wing of the McLaren. You can see just allowed the Bentley to go down towards the inside. And was there contact in the middle of the apex? I think there was. It looked like there was a bit of door banging. Yeah, McCluskey missed his apex a little bit. Thomas Jack gave it back though. And then in the end, McCluskey had the line and the power, and it would go the way of the Bentley driver. So the 28 car gets himself back up into the top 10. So brilliant resurgence through the order from the Bentley to see if he can finally get that top 10 finish that he has been wanting. A little bit of a difficult exit though on out of 12. Thomas Jack, does he think about the inside towards the chicane? No, not quite. And the Bentley is very, very strong through this sector as well. You can see, it just loses 1.5 car lengths in the chicane alone. As a little bit further back, we had a bit of a tussle going on between some of our other cars. I do believe Neuwirth and Jean-Michel Brun. Weber has dropped these guys. He has gone straight after Trafficker, who has lost the back of the Lamborghini up ahead. But Neuwirth, after that very, very disappointing series of events for him, trying to see if he can get past the 21 car of Jean-Michel Brun. Straight line speed advantage will be with the Aston Martin, but looks like the Lamborghini nicely hooked up in some of these tighter corners. As in the meantime, that's right, that's the leaderboard giving me a little bit of a worry there. I thought there was a sudden change of gap between our front two, but in actual fact, Pashka was 0.3 of a second faster than Madiri. So Pashka, he's keeping a cool head. He's got his championship rival several seconds behind down in P3, who can't rest on his laurels too much because Matt York in the BMW is sniffing around the back. Oh, the man is in P2. I thought he was going to go wide there in Aqua Minerale, just a different choice of line. Really very wide entry through that first apex. Maybe the car not settled in the camber of that corner. But with Pashka now closing in on Madiri, the power advantage of the Audi. If he can get just close enough, even within a car length, it may be enough for the Audi to put a move on the Italian driver for the lead of the race. Loris, of course, would love to win at effectively his second home race of the season. Not sure how Loris did at Misano earlier on. Where was Loris in the standings? Currently P11 in the standings, yet 29th position at Misano. Came away with a podium at Bartha, so we know we have seen glimmers of good pace from the BMW driver at other points in the season, but really has found himself in fine form today and has been driving very, very consistently so far in this race and not making a big enough mistake just yet for Pashka to try to recover that lead. Similarly, McCluskey holding on to P10 in that Bentley. As a actual fact, our battle for the lead and for the last position, top 10, are our closest fights on the track at the moment. Also, it should be noted, last time around, actually not quite last time around, I think the lap before, Madiri did take fastest lap back away from Weber. So the Italian now, he didn't start on pole position, but he has found himself into the lead of the race, and he is lapping very, very quickly. 1/10 of a second faster than Pashka last time around. We've also got a battle starting to form between Mr. Jones and Alex Rosetta. That's Madiri's teammate in the other BMW. So number 9 car, by far Mr. Jones' best performance so far this season. Was on for a strong result at Misano, I do believe. Judged the weather really well in terms of strategy, but then got it all wrong with a drive-through later on in the race. Mr. Jones, finished P8 in the end, and then has had 2 DNFs in the last 2 races. So if he can walk away with a top 5, I'll be very, very happy to finish his season like so. But Rosetta has something to say about it. Pitchick lurking in the background as well. Wasn't on quite the same pace as those guys. Also being closed in by his teammate, Koroshavin, who was on a good comeback drive through the field, that must be said. And we'll check back in on our lead. As you can see visibly, Pashka would have been closing in on that back straight, but then it's through all the corners and the braking zones. And that is where the BMW starts to regain lap time. So good stuff there from these two, not making too many mistakes. We believe that swap of position was just due to a pit stop error potentially from Pashka. We don't believe that he had any damage, but did end up being a change. Could have just been too cautious an entry as well. We did see visibly actually how much time Madiri gained, and after that stop and go 30-second penalty the Pashka got last time out at Laguna Seca, really would not have been wanting to risk that again with the championship on the line this evening, but does seem to right now be the driver that is a bit more composed than the BMW just up ahead. But unable to reel in the 24 car for the time being. Number 28 of McCluskey still holding off the McLaren behind, as Thomas Jack is doing a very good job in the McLaren, actually, it has to be said, around here. Not a car that tends to do so well. I think a one previous BOP was somewhat strong, but just the nature of the curves and everything around here and the straight line speed that car now tends to lack. It doesn't have a great deal of torque either. Just really does not tend to suit this circuit. The Aston Martin used to be a very, very strong and powerful car around here as well, but unable to quite live up to the expectations that it had in the past. But still a good effort there from Mr. Jones to have it sitting up in P5. Other Aston Martins in the race struggling just a bit. Neuwirth obviously having a rather torrid day with... Oh, that's a big slide from Pashka. Let's go on board with that, because that was certainly a moment to capture. You see as he's trying to push on to close in on Madeira as he comes through turn 5, gets a big kick of oversteer, just keeps on going and going and going, but brilliant car control from the championship leader to just about keep that one pointing the right way, because even though his championship rival is just under 8 seconds behind him, a mistake like that can suddenly turn the championship on its head. Although P3 for Jogurk is starting to look less and less likely, as Matt York has been closing in, took 2/10 out of the Audi again. Really don't think that that car is very well settled through the apex of turn 11. Really does not seem to deal well with that elevation change at the very steep entry to the corner. And the BMW, we've seen it in the behaviour of Madeira's car as well, just seems so much more composed around some of these corners and dealing with the bumps. But Jogurk still doing enough for the time being. As 21 car, I think that might be Neuwirth. No, Jean-Michel Brin has gone off at Tosa. So what on earth has happened to the Lamborghini driver? He was battling by the looks of it with Trafka. Managed to escape away from Neuwirth as well. So what happened between these two? See, looks all fairly reasonable through 5 and 6 so far. Trafka goes a little bit wide. Does Jean-Michel Brin think about the inside? Oh, it's a late dive towards the inside. Does the gap close? There's a tree in the way, and on the exit, there is a very difficult moment there between the pair of them. I think Jean-Michel Brin maybe carried a little bit too much speed on the mid portion of the circuit, of the line there, and it looked like he just ran a little bit wide on the exit and tapped Trafka. Trafka did keep on going, but difficult there from the Lamborghini driver, who's retired now to the pits. As in the meantime, Miss Jones continuing to be put under pressure from Rosetta. Rosetta 0.3 of a second faster than Mr. Jones last time around. As Matt York continuing, not just continuing to put pressure on Jogurk, but continuing to really push the track limits on the exit of Piratella there. We believe that it might have been there, or on the exit of Aqua Minerale, where Luke Whitehead got that final corner cutting warning yesterday. But Matt York really flirting with what he can get away with. Jogurk, though, does look remarkably composed through the chicane. So maybe it's the type of curb that is just not working so well with this setup. Seems to have a setup that's well adapted to those sudden shock loads and change in suspension travel. But in the corners where there's the kind of the full loading of the corner, doesn't seem to be quite so settled, and that was a kick of the gravel going up in the background. That might be enough of a momentum swing for Matt York to finally get the slipstream that he requires to challenge for a podium position. Which way does Jogurk go? He goes towards the inside line. He's going to send the BMW the long way around, going in towards turn 2. Can Matt York sweep around the outside? No, he cannot. Jogurk keeps his head and holds that inside line and will keep that podium position for another lap. But that was by far the closest opportunity that Matt York has had so far. The gap between Pitchik and Koroshavin closing a bit as well. It's opened up between Mr. Jones and Rosetta. So very, very soon we could actually see a 4-way fight for the remainder of the top 5 positions potentially. But for the time being, staying as is. In the meantime, we've got Yuko Terminen in the big bad Lexus going on board with that. Listen to that V8 power roar on. Does he think about a move down towards the inside? He does, towards Robin Moe. I believe that is. Oh, there's almost contact on the apex. Robin Moe gave him the room, and they just about made it through there cleanly. But great spatial awareness there from Robin Moe to not get completely clattered by the Lexus. Really did go for it. But a brilliant effort there from Terminen to try to take that position. Jogurk still holding on to P3. As Mr. Jones getting a little bit of a compromised line there. There wasn't a very good exit for Rosetta. He had a bit of an awkward line through the chicane as well. So the difficult one for him to try to close in on the Aston Martin ahead won't be on this lap. Mr. Jones doing just enough for the time being to maintain that advantage. We've got Gasper Marak, got Watson, Haverman, Marak, Gavon and Fang all fairly close to one another, but not currently in too much of a scrap, but that may change shortly. It was Jay Fang that was fastest out of this group last time around, but the closest two on circuit at the moment is this battle for third place. Matt York once again really hustling the back of the Audi. Jogurk does seem to be struggling potentially with tyre wear. We've seen that car be rather squirrely in a variety of corners. Pashka has also dropped away a little bit from Madiri, who has continued to put in good laps. Although saying that, last time round there was only 0.005 of a second separating them, so very even on pace overall. But Madiri just, in the same way that we saw at the latter end of the first stint, it does look like the BMW just maintains its pace throughout the stint a bit better than the Audis, and it's the same trade-off that we're seeing now between Jogurk and Matt York, who I believe is trying to see if he can get his first podium of the season yet. Best position he's had so far was 6th place last time out at Laguna Seca, so he's already on for a personal best finish. But that's not going to be the way to do it. Running wide on the exit of the chicane, and he loses a couple of car lengths then to Jogurk, who extends that advantage. Has to be said though, our top two of Pashka and Madiri, where the gap has closed down just a bit again, they are an absolute league of their own today. They're lapping. Oh, that was a hugely quick lap time from Pashka. 41.0, almost into the 40s. And out of nowhere, he's taken half a second out of Madiri. And now we have a fight for the lead of the race. Always Gavon is our next one to suffer from track limits around here at Imola. He gets a drive-through penalty, so they are still being struck down by the inbuilt KUNOS stewards. But Pashka, last time around, absolutely flying. I was about to reflect on one of the comments in the chat about Madiri being on fire. Well, he has absolutely been on fire all race long. But out of nowhere, Pashka, as I was just saying that the Audi's tyres were maybe starting to fall off the edge of the cliff a little bit, that he just absolutely comes out of nowhere and smashes the previous best lap time out of the park, and was just, he was ridiculously quick. He was 0.7 of a second faster than Jogurk, a second faster than the likes of Matt York. So this pace, was it just a one-lap wonder, or is this seriously now a threat to try to reclaim that leading position in the race? There's been several opportunities so far this season where Pashka has almost managed to win. The first was at the opener at Misano. He was leading at Barcelona, but ended up losing out to Matthias Weber. He was in a good spot at Suzuka, but then Jogurk on that day was the superior driver, and then had a bit of a nightmare at Laguna Seca. But Pashka has been looking very quick at Imola, along with Madiri. These two have been the absolute class of the field so far. Matt York still unable to do anything about Jogurk in P3. See worthy of how much of an advantage does Pashka get. He took another 0.5 of a second out of Madiri last time around. Slipstream closing all the time, shows his nose, but ends up thinking better of it, and will back out of that one for the time being. So number 77 car, with 11 minutes left on the clock, staying in P2, but really is looking feisty at the moment, it must be said. Matt York took a couple of tenths of a second from Jogurk, so he's looking to try to close back in on the advantage that the Audi has just up ahead. Watson gradually coming under pressure from Gasper Marak. We wondered if some of these gaps would close up as well. You see, we'll hop on the rear wing. Honda doesn't quite have the straight line speed advantage here at Imola that we've seen it have before, and the Ferrari is not a slow car on the straights either. Certainly in terms of straight line speed, the Honda will benefit from the huge amount of torque it has underneath the bonnet, or I suppose almost the boot in the mid-engine cars that that the Honda gets from that turbo. I think it's a single turbo in the Honda, but it really does deliver an absolute whack of power. Makes it tough to drive though, it must be said, as a Robin Moe defending a little bit unnecessarily there before 5 and 6 as this train of cars starting to build up a bit for the battle for P18 terminal closing in. In the meantime, Gasper Marak is closing in on Jordan Watson, and Jay Fang is joining him for the party as well. Oh, that was a big moment on the exit there, but Gasper Marak using that grunt up the hill in the Honda. This is one of the places on the circuit where that power advantage really does come to play. Almost a little bit of contact on the entry to the chicane, but Watson holds on to the inside line, gets a little bit squirrely on the exit though. Will hop back on board with the Honda driver. Is he able to do anything down towards turn 17? I'm not sure, but I'm going to have a look back towards the front, because Matt York now going down towards the inside of Yoguk, and he has made it stick, and he's into P3. So we didn't quite see how that move initially formed. We'll hop back in the replay. Oh, so Matt York had actually managed to get around at an earlier point around the lap, and then Yoguk is seemingly going to come back at him. So this is a straight line speed advantage of the Audi. You can see a little bit of rubber banding, but then by the time we get to the very tail end of the straight, that SpongeBob liveried Audi, man, P2 in the standings. Yoguk really did try sending it around the outside there, but just ran out of road. But Matt York then sees himself make it to be the second BMW up on the podium. So brilliant stuff there from him up at the front. Daniel Pashka is still hustling the back of Loris Madiri with less than 10 minutes left of the race to go. The advantage did go Maduri's way last time around by just under a tenth of a second. We've also got... Oh, it's Koroshavin. So it's all been shuffling around. So I think there's been a couple of moments, sadly, when we've been looking at some of these other battles, because Koroshavin has found his way up into P5. Rosetta has got past Mr. Jones as well. And now, out of nowhere... So has that been on this lap? We'll have to look at the times as they cross the start-finish line, because last time around they were all fairly even. Low 41s from most of them, which was actually pretty good pace. That's fairly close to the leaders, as Koroshavin goes a little bit wide on the exit of 17 there. Does that give a potential advantage to the BMW? I think Mr. Jones is a little bit too far behind to try to reel him in. And we know how fast the Audis are down this back stretch, where the slipstream is seemingly enough for the BMW to close in slowly but surely. He's going to go towards the outside of turn 2. Be good on the brakes, but he won't be able to make that one stick. Does he get a better run through 3 and 4? It's allowing Mr. Jones to reel him in just a bit on the rear wing now of Koroshavin, but the BMW driver unable to do anything just yet. This is where the BMW is particularly strong, very nicely composed over the curves for the number 8 car. As you can see, really hustling the back of the Audi. Mr. Jones now is making this a 3-way fight for P5. Up at the front, it's still all fairly even as it was before. Mr. Jones did lose out on that last lap, so I think maybe there was contact between Rosetta and Jones, because they both did 44s, and it was Koroshavin that did a 42.6, which, while not a special lap in itself, was clearly faster than those two. So I think maybe a bit of contact there, and Koroshavin was the benefactor of all of that. Matt York still holding on to P3, but Christopher Yoguk has not given up on that one just yet. See what speed has Madiri got down the start-finish straight this time around. All the laps, half a tenth going the way of Pashka, but whatever setup Madiri's got on his car, and likewise for Daniel Pashka, doesn't quite seem to have the same level of pace down the back stretch that some of the other Audis do, but maybe that's what's put him in this position, because he does seem to be taking care of his tyres a bit better than some of the other drivers. I think Rosetta's a bit closer than he was last time around. He's not going to be there too early though. Really wants to be a lot more alongside the Team Ballast Ukraine car on the entry if he can, but he's going to be hung out to dry on the outside. Mr. Jones trying to set up a cutback of his own. Go on board the rear wing now of Rosetta as they head down towards 5 and 6, but Rosetta will park it in the middle of the circuit then, and will hold on to P6 for the time being. It's allowed Ola Pitchik to catch up to this group as well, as these drivers continuing to scrap all the way to the end. This is what we've had all season long. Wherever you look, there was always a battle going on. Pashka now still continuing to put huge amounts of pressure on Madiri, who has withstood this pressure absolutely fantastically. Pashka He's got a championship to think about, but we know he is a racer and he throws everything at it. He wears his heart on his sleeve as well. Very, very self-critical, but sometimes that self-criticism is what allows you to strive for perfection, and although he's currently not exactly where he wants to be in this race so far, he has certainly executed a very strong performance. Matt York still having to hold back. Man, P2 in the standings. It's not gone the way that he would have wanted today. That qualifying did compromise him, and he got stuck behind, I think it was Remy Rose at the start. Inherited a position from Papin, who'd have also been amongst this scrap based on the undercut, but sadly got a drive-through penalty, so we didn't quite get to see how that would have turned out. But Pashka just losing out the smallest of margins on that last lap. As these guys still scrapping. Pitchik now starting to close in on the Aston Martin. The Aston Martin, good top-end speed down the start-finish stretch. There's always a late dive there from Pitch. It gets the nose chopped off the front of his car at the apex. That was never going to happen. So Mr. Jones holding firm to keep that P7 spot for the time being. Checking in on the battle up at the front. Pashka now around half a second. There will be a couple more laps left when they cross the line. So opportunities are running out. Remy Papin has recovered fairly well despite the drive-through penalty. He is now up into P14. Has got Jordan Watson up ahead of him. So strong pace from the number 6 car. But that very costly error of the drive-throughs. Got a very busy fight going on as down in P27, last week's winner Yurish Yelenko has got a drive-through penalty. Verona trying to go around the outside now of Arnaud Rodri into turn 5. Can't make that one happen. Terminen has dropped down a little bit, I think, in this fight as well. Weber is trying to go down the inside of Robin Moe very, very late into Tosa. There's a tree, blocks our view once again, but he might have enough torque on the exit. We'll go on board with the Audi. His car's pointing the wrong way for us to be able to see, but you can see a little bit of rubber banding. There it is. There's the Audi of Weber now, trying to go toward the inside. I'm not sure anything Robin Moe can do about it, and he can't. If anything, on our Rodri, maybe now trying to capitalise on that as well, but he's got Verona to worry about. As Verona's trying to go down the inside, down towards Aqua Minerale. Can't do that. That might compromise his line, as they're all really going through several concertina effects simultaneously. Weber, though, very opportunistic move from him to see him make that position up into P18 now. So we'll check back up with our leaders. Still no change there. Koroshavin coming under pressure from Rosetta, but still very even. Thomas Jack under pressure from Haverman. As the straight line speed of the Audi going to be enough for a move down towards turn 2. It's still all kicking off, even in the dying moments of the final race of the season. Haverman unable to do anything for the time being. This tussle between Robin Moe, Arnaud Rodri and Verona still going. Oh dear. Weber has, well, Weber's gone. So Weber, unfortunately, after having made that position up into Tosa, has disappeared off into the shadow realm. In the meantime, Robin Moe now defending the inside from Arnaud Rodri. He's going to try to break around the outside of turn 2. It's very difficult to make that one stick. Robin Moe, though, did go a little bit deep. That might compromise his exit as they go through 3 and 4. Verona also carrying good momentum there as well. Moe feeling the need to go down the inside to defend in towards turn 5. Rodri going to be hung out to dry, almost getting a chop across the front of the car there. Does Verona think about repeating the move from Weber? Not quite, as we get the call from the engineer that this is the last lap from our leaders. One more time then for our front 2, as they're still battling towards turn 2. And Daniel Pashka, he got close to trying to make a move, but still unable to do it just yet. We'll have to follow this one through to the end, because can Pashka get a win? Can he end the season on a win? Or can Madiri hold him off to take a win at one of his home circuits? Pashka taking a huge amount of curb there. He's still got to worry about the championship. Jogurk unable to close in today, as it looks like he'll have to settle for P4. Koroshavin still holding on to that position from Rosetta. Pashka, has he got anything left in the Audi? There is a decent stretch of road towards the start-finish line, but the start-finish line does come up a bit earlier than the top speed swing of the Audi would particularly like for Pashka. The 77 really hustling his way around. He's be desperate to try to see if he can get redemption for any of those other missed opportunities that he's had so far this season. But through the chicane one more time. Pashka taking a huge amount of curb. He's got to be careful not to get a drive-through penalty at the end. It was a good exit there from Pashka, so is there anything that you can do as they head towards Ravazza for the last time? Madiri has been absolutely faultless ever since he took the lead, and I don't think Pashka is going to have enough to do anything about it. He floors it, but it is going to go the way of Madiri with a brilliant effort there to win his first race of the season. But championship honours will go to this man, the number 77 car. He would have wanted a victory to his name, but Daniel Pashka is your champion for Tier 2 in Season X after an astonishingly good season from him. Matt York with a brilliant drive ends up P3 in the end to take a podium finish, and commiserations to this man. Yogurki gave it everything today. He's had an up and down season, but he'll have to settle for P4 in the end and P2 in the standings. Koroshavin, strong effort there from him. That might see him bump his way up the order potentially. Rosetta P6, Jones had to settle for P7 in the end. Cowley, good effort there from him to get 9th. McCluskey finally gets his top 10 finish, flashing of lights there in celebration. Thomas Jack looks like he'll just about hold on to that position from Just Haverman behind, as Watson, Papin and Marak fighting all the way to the end. Oh, as a last ditch attempt from Marak, not quite coming off, and a drive-through penalty sadly for Arnaud Rodri. As these drivers still battling at it, Robin Moe will see the front of this pack to the flag. But Arnaud Rodri will have a 30-second penalty, I believe, applied to his race end time, sadly. So he will drop out that P19 position, as Verona unable to get Neuwirth in the end. Neuwirth recovered up to, with those penalties, P19 at the end. Oh, as we've got our usual car park forming as the leaderboard goes through all of its updates. But it will be this man, Daniel Pashka. He wasn't quite able to end it on the high that he would have wanted, but in the end it was good enough, and you can still see by the language in that car that he is absolutely chuffed to bits with that result. So a brilliant, brilliant showing there from the German driver to get P2 in the finale. He kept his head. He lost the lead in the pit stops. Madiri was faultless all evening, but Pashka did everything that he needed to do to cement his championship. So huge congratulations to him. Hopefully, may be able to get some sort of interview with him. We'll also try to work out P3 in the standings as well if I can, because we have Marak finished down in P15, I believe. And then we've had Koroshavin finish in P5. Melis down P17. So I think there is a chance that... Let's see if... trying to see if we can get the point system for the finishing positions. I'm trying to work out. That's... information or there we go, race classification. So for 5th, Koroshavin will get 65 points. 15th will only get 22 points. So that is a 43 points difference going in favour of Koroshavin, and it won't quite be enough in the end to displace Marak. So Marak, I do believe, will be holding on to P3 in the standings in the end for that one. And we have got some people lining up for interviews, which is fantastic and wonderful to see. So we'll look to get some of these drivers in now. So we'll make our way out of the session and we will start to bring them in. So I think, first of all, the man that we have to bring into the commentary box for interview, of course, has to be our Tier 2 champion, Daniel Pashka. Can you hear me, my friend?
I can hear you, yes.
Well, huge congratulations. I'm sure you would have wanted to end it on a victory, because another one that just got away in that one there. You know, there's been a couple that have come close, but in the end, you did everything that you needed to do to secure that championship. So huge congratulations to you, and how are you feeling?
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of the season, apart from a few races which I fucked up at the end not to win it, like today. Not a good pit stop, where I lost my P1 here. I feel like I was the fastest today, but couldn't overtake him at the end. But I'm happy with the result, and drove a very good season apart from a few mistakes. So let's see what the future brings.
Yeah, absolutely. In the stream, I did mention that the yourself, much like a lot of other drivers, are your own worst critic, and that you're always striving for that extra bit of perfection, and that those bits of frustration, you know, is what makes the drivers at the very top end of the game push on for every advantage that you can get. So I'm not surprised to hear your slight disappointment in not getting the victory today, but absolutely, you had a very consistent season overall. Obviously, there was a couple of disasters at Bathurst and Laguna Seca, but other than that, you didn't finish outside of the top 5, which is a fantastic, well, top 4, excuse me, a fantastic achievement, and a level of consistency that even the likes of some of our best tier 1 drivers didn't display. So really stellar stuff from you all season. And what would you say has been kind of the highlight of your season? Obviously, coming away with the championship is a nice overall thing, but as a personal highlight for you, what would you say that you've enjoyed the most out of this season?
Difficult question. I think the highlight in general was my overall pace of the season. I can pick a race, I guess. Maybe Misano with the strategy. I think that was golden and awesome strategy.
It was looking absolutely wonderful, and it was such a shame. It was such a shame. I think most of the chat was as gutted as I was on the stream as well, because it really had played into your hands perfectly. But yeah, the one that just got away. But perhaps next time round it will go in your favour. So do you think you'll be returning for season 11?
See, and if so, I would like to drive in tier 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the goal of any tier 2 champion is to then look to capitalize and build upon that to see into tier 1 next season. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But once again, huge congratulations to you, Daniel, after a stellar season and another podium finish today to secure the championship in brilliant fashion. Absolutely, it always is. It always is. So yeah, brilliant stuff from you, and thanks for coming in for an interview as well.
Thanks for streaming, buddy.
Thanks, Daniel. Take care.
Good.
Brilliant stuff there from our Tier 2 champion. We'll also get the race winner in today. Now, we may potentially... I seem to remember we may have had Loris in the comms box before. We'll see how this one goes.
And don't speak English.
Hi, Loris. You're in the interview room now. Sorry, I didn't mean to drag you out of conversation. Obviously, a rather intense fight between yourself and Daniel. But congratulations on a brilliant drive today to get the win in the final round. How are you feeling?
Thanks, John. Yeah, it's nice to hear from you again.
Yeah, it's been a couple of races. I think 'cause you had a podium. Was it Bathurst earlier on in the season? I believe. I think last time where you may have joined us in the interview room. It was yes. So it's been a while. But yeah, you drove absolutely brilliantly today. Obviously, weren't quite able to start on pole. It was very close between yourself and Daniel, but had fantastic consistency in the race, and you were under so much pressure from Daniel in those latter stages. What was it like in the cockpit?
Yes, yes, very hard battle with Daniel. The race, vabbè, aspetta, mi sono preparato un discorso. The race went very well. I think the team that was close to me as spotter, and thanks to you for this wonderful championship. Yeah.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Loris, and yeah, you know, it was a brilliant drive there from you today. Fantastic way to end your season, and very glad that you've enjoyed it. Will you be here for season 11?
John, I don't speak, cioè, non ci ho capito niente.
Not to worry, Loris. Thank you ever so much for
Thanks, John.
coming into the interview.
Thanks, John.
And hopefully speak to you soon. And thanks again, Loris, and congratulations.
Thanks, John.
It's yeah, that was. I had a feeling from that we'd had Loris in for interview before, and I had recollections of that. But yeah, and then fantastic stuff. We're actually going to get a complete podium of interviews as well. So we'll look to bring Yorkie in. So Matt, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Fantastic, and I can indeed. What an exceptional drive there for you today to really, you know, you've had some really strong results in the last couple of races. P6 at Laguna Seca, and then closing out the season with a really hard-fought podium at Imola. How are you feeling after that drive?
Quite hot and quite sweaty, but very, very good, and quite pleased with myself. Yeah, very happy to get a podium today.
Yeah, understandably so. You know, we saw the straight line speed advantage of the Audis around here. Well, they've been strong in straight line speed all season, but that backstretch at Imola, just trying to overtake Chris's in front of you. You had a few opportunities, and you were lurking, and you had a lot more composure in a lot of the corners and the braking than Chris's did. But it took a while for you to find that opportunity, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. He was mighty quick through the final turn, and was always getting a good run off. So even when I was kind of relatively close and probably would have been able to have the chance to turn one, he was always just eking out that gap. There was one or two opportunities where he did have a pretty poor run coming out the exit of the final corner, which gave me a chance into turn one. There was one moment where side by side I was on the outside, and he rolled off the brake and effectively shut the door for me going around the outside. But I knew that if I just kept pressuring him, he obviously pitted quite a bit earlier than I did, probably trying to do the undercut well, which worked. But I knew I'd have the tyres at some point, and yeah, he made a mistake in the hairpin, which gave me an opportunity to get a good run coming off of it, and was alongside going up into the left-hander at the top of the hill, and managed to make the move stick.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Sadly, I am sorry to say we didn't actually quite catch the move itself. We jumped back. I know, I am very sorry. We had so much chaos going everywhere else in the grid, and when we jumped back, we saw you defending his immediate retaliation going towards turn 2. But yeah, so sadly we didn't quite catch the move. But for those that would be interested in seeing, obviously do head over to Matt York's channel and see that there for yourself to see what wonders that we did miss on that. But yeah, fantastically thought out battle there from you to get that P3, and sort of obviously reflecting on, you know, what's been a bit of an up and down season. You've had some very strong performances, and you know, highlights probably I would imagine would be that fantastic comeback at Bathurst to get up to P7. And you know, so what would you say has been your personal highlight from this season?
Personal highlight has probably got to be today's race. Best qualifying result that I've had in a long, long time. I knew the car was going to be quick here, judging by I was basically matching the pace of Jorgik and Papin last night. So I knew that the car was going to be strong. Just needed to convert the qualifying result, which I did, and then yeah, managed to hold it together for the race. I think Suzuka was my real letdown. I had a slight moment and a bit of contact with Dominic Koroshavin, which was ultimately my fault and cost me basically a top 5, top 6 in the race, and then finishing 25th. So that was a race of what could have been, which was a shame. But yeah, it's been quite a good season. There's an improvement over last season. I just need to again improve on my qualifying, because the race pace is there, consistency is there, racecraft's there. It's just qualifying I need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's when we've been looking at performance on the stream and everything, it has very much been that trend. But today, you absolutely nailed it in qualifying, and really then were able to convert that pace that you evidently had into a strong finishing position. So it's coming in time. And do you think you'll be returning for another season in season 11 next time?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be doing it again, hopefully in tier 2. I don't want to be in tier 1. As much as I'd like to be like against Jade and stuff like that, I don't quite have the pace.
It can also be quite a chaotic tier at times as well. But, and any thoughts on what car? Because obviously you've bounced between I think the Aston Martin, the Bentley, the BMW now. Sort of any ideas as to what you might be looking to take in season 11, or not sure yet?
Not sure yet. I might stick with the BMW. It was quite good. It was just a couple of tracks where it wasn't quite as strong this season, I don't think, compared to last. Obviously, it was very good here at Imola tonight, and it felt good at, say, Bathurst, but there was a couple of tracks where it just didn't quite work. Zandvoort, I think, was one of those. So, yeah, I reckon it'll be a good, strong contender for next season, but obviously the Audi is very strong. The Honda is also seemed to have come alive this season with few drivers driving very quickly, but I think I'll probably stick to front engine cars, as they seem to work to my driving style the best.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. And yeah, I think you're right. The BOP shift that we've had kind of since when the M4 first came into the game, and then sort of recent changes, the Honda, like you say, has really sort of come into its own as well. But yeah, brilliant stuff. So yeah, huge congratulations on a kind of a well-developed and improved season this time, and also finishing on a nice high of getting that podium at Imola this evening. So so fantastic stuff tonight, Matt, and we look forward to seeing you in season 11 then.
Thank you very much, my dude. And just want to say big thank you for all the awesome commentary that you've done over the season as well. It's been a lot of fun actually going back and watching the races through, like later on in the evening or the following day. And yeah, your commentary's made it very enjoyable. So keep up the good work there yourself, and I hope to see you commentating again next season too.
Thank you very much, very kind of you, and yes, I have no doubts that I will be about again. So yeah, look forward to it, and maybe a few more interviews and podium finishes for yourself, so we may cross paths in season 11 a bit more. But yeah, thanks coming into the Cosbox tonight, Matt.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me, and yeah, take care, and I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Matt.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Brilliant stuff there to have our top 3 finishers from tonight, and whilst also, you know, all very lovely comments for the appreciation towards all of the hard work that's gone into streams, not just from me, but from, you know, Tim and Tetra, also other points in the season, but must be said, there are 2 more sets of thanks, or well, 3 more really sets of thanks to give out. First of all, huge thanks to actually all of the drivers of Tier 2. Mentioned it earlier on in the stream that, you know, sometimes we do see a fall off in attendance during the season, but finishing with over 30 drivers attending the final race is actually very, very strong. So a huge thanks to all of those that stuck with the season and committed to it all the way through. So that has been absolutely fantastic, gave so much action and made it really enjoyable for us to watch and for myself and others to commentate over. Then, of course, a huge shout out to all of the coordinators and stewards that put in hard work in not just Tier 2 but across all 10 tiers of GT3 racing that we have had this season. They put in a huge amount of hours to enable all of this happen. And once again, I've mentioned this name before, but amongst all of the recent DDoS attacks that have happened, the Knight in Shining Armour for AOR has been Mr. Shooter80, a long-standing member in the community who has worked wonders amongst some others in the AOR team to try to protect these servers as much as possible so that we've been able to see these races through. So a huge special thanks must go to him and everyone else involved in trying to secure that so that we can enjoy all of this fantastic action. But, yep, that will be it then for Season X. Season 11 will be in due course, and we've had some recent DLCs of the Americas pack, so potentially some of those tracks featuring. I'm sure there'll be some eager to have some league racing on there. As a final review of the championship, Daniel Pashka then is your Tier 2 champion. Wasn't able to secure a win in the end, but did end up coming out on top with a very consistent season. 50 points ahead of Yogurk, who couldn't quite bring it all together in the end, but still a strong effort there from him. Still our winningest driver of the season with 2 wins and a podium. Gasper Marak, maybe what could have been. He had 2 no-shows this season, but still came away with 3rd place. Koroshavin gets himself up to P4. Loris Madiri with that win at the end jumps 6 spots to round out the top 5. So big congratulations to him. Melis drops down to P6 in the standings. Matt York jumps up to P7. Trafka goes down to P8. Jan climbs. Difficult day for him in the Porsche, drops to P9. And Remy Papin closes out the top 10 with that P14 finish today. Would have been a lot stronger and maybe challenging for around P8 in the championship, but that drive-through penalty obviously bringing an end to those sorts of hopes for his challenge towards those positions. But it has been an absolutely fantastic season then for Season X. The first double-digit season of AOR on ACC, and I'm sure the first of plenty to come. So thank you so much, everybody who has been watching the stream, supporting all of the races. It's been fantastic to have you, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as myself and everyone else has in the comms box. And once again, if you want to get involved in AOR and see what stuff they have coming up for future league races and social events as well, there's been a lot of racing on the new DLC tracks. If you want to get involved in that, do look to join the Discord server to get involved with just a very friendly sim racing community, also a very friendly community full stop amongst many other passions to cars and motorsport. And if you want to look specifically at what championships AOR has going on at the moment, then do head on over to apexonline.racing to see what they are doing. We have more than ACC and more platforms than PC as well. And then do consider following AOR on Twitter at ApexOnRacing as well to see announcements of when these streams are happening and to keep up to date with when the sign-ups for future seasons of AOR Championships are coming about. It'd be lovely to see as many of you there as possible. And for Season 11, I'm sure it will bring as much action, if not more, than what we got to enjoy this season in Tier 2 here, but also some brilliant stuff in Tier 1, it must be said. And congratulations to Luke Whitehead on wrapping up that championship yesterday. But that will be it then from myself. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this evening and the support throughout this championship. It's been brilliant to have you here. But for now, it will be goodbye.